This dessert takes us to the lush country of Indonesia. Starting back from over 400 years, Dutch colonizers brought their influence to create a dessert using local ingredients and customs. Baked but served chilled, this custard is made with everyday items found in the Indonesian kitchen. We're exploring the history and origins of Klappertaart. I'm your host, Glenn Warren, and welcome to another serving of Seasons Eatings, the podcast which explores the history and origins of your favorite Christmas foods. Seasons Eatings can be found wherever you download your favorite podcasts. If you haven't already, I would ask you to subscribe. That way you won't miss an episode when it's released, and all future episodes will be available without you having to search for them. And if you can take a minute and leave me a 5-star review, I would greatly appreciate it. And if let me know you've left a review, I'll send you a Seasons Eating sticker as a personal thank you. But if you can't leave a review, then all I ask is to share this podcast with anyone you think will love to learn more about our favorite Christmas foods. Seasons Eatings can also be found on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Blue Sky. All the links can be found in the show notes, which can be found on seasonseatingspodcast.com. And while you're there, you can buy me an eggnog. Just click on the little cup at the top of the page and leave a little donation for as little as $3. Each donation is used for the running of the podcast and its general upkeep, so any help would be wonderful. And finally, you can let me know how I'm doing. Leave a suggestion for a future episode, or just say hello at seasonseatingspodcast@gmail.com. All links for the podcast can be found in the show notes. Indonesian diversity is not fully due to original indigenous cultures. Many of the cultures have been influenced by the Western world, especially Europe. Before independence, Indonesia was under the Dutch rule. In the early 16th century, many Dutch people settled in regions in Indonesia, such as Java, Sumatra, and other islands. The impacts of colonialization were always seen as disastrous ones, but they also left a rather positive influence on various aspects, such as dances and traditional dishes. Before we talk about how the delicious klappertaart came to be, we need to discuss how the Dutch came to be in the East Indies. The United East India Company, or VOC, VOC because in Dutch it starts with a V, was commonly known as the Dutch East India Company, and it was a chartered trading company and one of the first joint stock companies in the world. It was established on the 20th of March in 1602 by the States General of the Netherlands, amalgamating existing companies, and it was granted a 21-year monopoly to carry out trade activities in Asia. Having been established in 1602 to profit from the Moluccan spice trade, the VOC established a capital in the port city of Jakarta in 1619, and changed its name to Batavia, now Jakarta. Over the next 2 centuries, the company acquired additional ports as trading bases and safeguarded their interests by taking over surrounding territory. It remained an important trading concern and paid annual dividends to be averaged about 18% of capital for almost 200 years. This made a lot of people very rich. A lot of Dutch people became very rich. The spice trade was very lucrative, and I talk about the Dutch spice trade in my episode about nutmeg and mace, both of which come from the same seed. I'll put a link to that episode in my show notes. A major problem in the European trade with Asia at the time was that Europeans could offer few goods that Asians Asian consumers really wanted, except silver and gold. European traders therefore had to pay for spices with precious metals, which were in short supply in Europe, except for Spain and Portugal. The Dutch and English had to obtain it by creating a trade surplus with other European countries. So they discovered the obvious solution for the problem: start an intra-Asiatic trade system whose profits could be used to finance the spice trade with Europe. Over the next 5 decades, the company pursued an aggressive economic policy aimed at undermining its rivals. It created an intra-Asia trade network that facilitated the purchase and sales of precious metals at significantly reduced rates. As the Portuguese influence generally waned, British naval supremacy began to rise. The profits from colonial trade gradually declined over the next half-century as the spice market became oversaturated due to the establishment of new trade links with South America. So the Dutch actually found themselves in continuous conflict with the British, engaging in 2 devastating wars that took a toll on both sides. The second conflict, occurring between 1780 and 1784, nearly spelled disaster for the company, with the British forces decimating half of the Dutch fleet. These losses were never fully recovered, and by 1799 the Dutch East India Company was officially disbanded, marking the end of its 2-century-long dominance in the spice trade. Indonesian traditional dishes that have been influenced by the Dutch are croquette, nastar, which is a pineapple tart, kastengel, which is like a cheese stick, and then klappertaart, which is a coconut custard cake. Klappertaart originated from North Celebes. The word klappertaart is derived from the 2 words klapper and tart, which are Indonesian and Dutch, respectively. Klapper was originally taken from the word kalapa, or coconut, that was spelled as clapper by the Dutch people at the time, whereas tart is a Dutch word that refers to a cake. So, klappertaart, which means a coconut cake, is originated from Manado, becomes a favorite dessert because it tastes sweet and savory. In the colonialism period, the Dutch realized that the Indonesians had a very large number of coconut farms. The Dutch women experimented with young coconut meat in their tart recipe. So klappertaart is usually consumed by the upper middle class Dutch families in the East Indies. The recipe is recognized from Manado because of the native Indonesian maids who actually worked for the Dutch families learned this tart recipe. Also, the Indonesian educated aristocrats who became friends with Dutch people, and its massive sales in the market, which led to people's curiosity on how to make it. The Dutch women engaged in daily activities such as cooking and tailoring. They also liked to write books on food recipes. They were aware that coconut is one of the most productive commodities in Manado. Relating to that, they have intention to create a dish out of coconut. After some attempts, they finally created a proper dish and called it klappertaart. The recipe spread in some ways, as the Dutch women did not do all the cooking. If they had to make cakes for their husbands, native Indonesian maids usually were asked to help them. In addition, some of the native classified as upper class had the chance to get around and act like the Dutch did. They eventually were curious about the cake and got the recipe from the Dutch right away. The spread of the recipe also happened through sales in Indonesia and the recipe book written by Dutch women, so natives were intrigued and learned to make it at home. Klappertaart is part of the gisttafel, or rice table, a Dutch term that means an elaborate meal for following the presentation of many Indonesian side dishes, served on a table all at once. The Rijsttafel, the Dutch colonists usually had klappertaart as a dessert, where native Indonesians did not have an array setting and had the cake whenever they wanted to try it. During the era of the Second World War, the Dutch's opinion towards desserts and snacks was a bit different. Snacks are something that can be consumed at any time, but desserts are consumed after dining and served during special occasions. Therefore, desserts are considered more symbolic than snacks. In addition, desserts have a long time preparation, complicated cooking methods, and more expensive than snacks. So klappertaart has a rare and expensive ingredient at the time. Nevertheless, in the era of post-World War II, desserts started to be served more often. Nowadays, klappertaart has become an Indonesian favorite dessert, served during special occasions such as Christmas, family gatherings, and other big parties. Moreover, klappertaart is also sold as a common dessert. The main ingredient, obviously, of klappertaart is the meat of a young coconut. This is because there are lots of coconut trees grown in the Celebes. According to North Celebes Central Agency on Statistics, Celebes produces 284 tons of coconuts. This is from 2014 census, and therefore the most exported commodity of Indonesia, whereas coconuts are the most imported commodity in the Netherlands. In addition, one of klappertaart's main ingredient is flour, which is obviously made from wheat. Wheat is the first introduced into Indonesia around the beginning of the 18th century during the Dutch colonization. At that time, wheat is cultivated in a land 900 meters above sea level. So the European citizens in Indonesia can have enough food supplies. The consumption of wheat and flour by the Dutch was a very common habit in Europe, and Indonesian people started to adapt this kind of habit eventually. Therefore, flour is included as an ingredient to develop a little bit of texture in the klappertaart. Moreover, there are other types of flours introduced later, such as cornstarch and custard, which are used as part of the ingredients of klappertaart. And the purpose of combining several types of flour is to create a more consistent texture and moisture in the dessert. And of course, because you're making coconut custard, the main dairy product is milk. Nevertheless, the consumption of dairy is not really common in Indonesia. So Indonesians consume less dairy compared to other Asian countries. According to a census, 90% of dairy products is located in West Java. So the case has shown that the dairy is actually very rare in the Celebes, especially during the times when the Dutch people were settled in Manado. Therefore, it can be said that the inclusion of milk in the klappertaart's ingredients may have come from the influence of the Dutch people, or some people who may have known about the consumption of dairy products and how to maintain them. And if you do look at a dairy consumption of the world, the Dutch are practically in the top 10. They consume a lot of dairy, a lot of milk per se, than other countries. But because Dutch people add a lot of milk to their food, they've used condensed milk in the klappertaart to give it a bit more flavor. So condensed milk is milk that's been boiled and some of the moisture has been evaporated, so it's a little bit sweeter. Rum is also one of the other ingredients in klappertaart. Rum is a product obviously made from sugar cane. During the war, the Netherlands exported rums to its colonies all over the world. For instance, Albany's rum consumption is the influence of the Dutch colonization on Albany. At first, rum was only consumed as a beverage, but as the Dutch people loved the taste of rum, it was included in the ingredients of klappertaart. And of course, because you're making a custard, you need eggs. Egg yolks are used as the emulsifier to maintain the mixture's stability. so that the separation of water and fat, usually butter, can be prevented, whereas the egg whites are used as the topping. So the egg whites are made into a meringue. So you just beat them into a stiff peak with some sugar, and then you toast the top of it after you make the custard. Other ingredients can be included in the klappertaart, such as raisins. Again, raisins gained their popularity in Indonesia during the Dutch colonization, and as one should know, raisins are dried grapes. So grapes started being cultivated in Indonesia in the early 1800s, and the Dutch love raisins. This is being shown through their habits of having raisins as snacks or toppings on bread, or even in rice, like a rice pudding. Almonds can also be found in the klappertaart, and all can be found in the eastern part of Indonesia, such as North Celebes, Moluccas, and the Seram Island. In Manado, almond is considered a tourist snack, not really a native snack. Therefore, almond is considered as a valuable and important commodity which needs to be developed. So we'll find out how to make this klappertaart with all these wonderful ingredients after the break.
It's Christmas!
Hello, this is Adam from Merry Britsmas. I am a Christmas fanatic from the UK who thinks that the world needs to know more about the traditions, telly and music that helps make a British Christmas really festive. I look at everything from mince pies to Boxing Day to Wham to Slade to the Royal Family to Doctor Who. If you want to find out more about a British Christmas, or you are British and want a hit of nostalgia, check me out at Merry Britsmas.
An happy blooming Christmas to you and all.
What's up, dudes? I'm Jerry D of Totally Rad Christmas, the podcast that talks all things Christmas in the 80s. Toys, movies, specials, music, books, fashion, and fads.
If it was gnarly during Christmas in the 80s, he's got it covered. Wait, is there a lot of things to talk about for the 80s and Christmas?
Well, you got the movie giants like Christmas Vacation, Scrooged, and A Christmas Story. There are TV specials like Muppet Family Christmas, Claymation Christmas Celebration, and a Garfield Christmas special.
Plus classics shown every year.
You also jam out to Last Christmas, Do They Know It's Christmas, and Christmas in Hollis. But most of all, it was a time for the most bodacious, best-selling Christmas toys ever, like He-Man, G.I. Joe, Transformers,
and Cabbage Patch Kids.
Yes, them too. We cover them all, plus much more, including standard segments like Hap Happiest Memory, Gag Me with the Spoon, The Other Half of the Battle,
and Chant with the Littles.
So tune in to Totally Rad Christmas everywhere you get your podcasts. Turn the clock back and dive into those warm and fuzzy memories.
Later, dudes.
So as I said before, klappertaart is a coconut cake. But that's a little bit misleading. It's not really a cake. It's actually a custard made from combining milk and eggs and heating it. And with the meat of young coconuts. So the easiest recipe I could find for a klappertaart is 5 young coconuts, 3 to 4 tablespoons of plain flour, half a bottle of fresh milk, 3 to 4 spoons of sugar, 8 egg yolks, 4 tablespoons of butter, 8 egg whites, 4 tablespoons of raisins, cinnamon powder, and cooking equipment such as a pan, obviously an oven, and a spatula. So the process of preparing the klappertaart begins with preheating the pan and melting the butter. Then throw in some flour, the milk and the sugar are added and then mixed together. An egg yolk is added along with a ladle of the previous mixture in a separate bowl. So you're basically making a custard. You have to temper the eggs so they won't cook too quickly, and then you'll get little bits of egg in your custard, and that is not a good thing. Then the contents of the mixture are mixed together and heated through until a thick consistency is obtained, and then some raisins and chopped coconut meat are added. The stove is turned off, and the mixture is poured into the baking pan. The mixture is baked for about 15 minutes at about 325 degrees or about 160 degrees Celsius. And while the mixture is being baked, you can take your egg whites and sugar and beat it with an electric beater or a stand mixer, and beat until you get these firm, stiff peaks. And after 15 minutes, the cake is taken out. Let it cool a little bit, and then the egg whites are piped on top and then put back into the oven and baked for another 20 minutes. Of course, that is just the basic recipe. Obviously, you can add your own twist to it. Like I said, you can add a little bit of rum. Some people like to add diced bread to make it more like a bread pudding. You can do canarium nuts or almonds or walnuts. Klappertaart can be eaten at any time of the day and actually tastes good warm, but it's served mostly chilled. And it is basically a dessert that's stood the test of time. So for your next holiday meal, why not just make a quick custard, throw in some coconut meat, and try to make this wonderful Indonesian dish, klappertaart. I'm your host, Glenn Warren, and thank you for listening to this serving of Seasons Eatings. Seasons Eatings is available on YouTube, Blue Sky, and wherever you get your favorite podcasts. Please, if you can leave a review about the show, we can spread the Christmas cheer. Also, I would love to hear from you, so send me an email at seasonseatingspodcast@gmail.com and let me know how you like the show. Suggestions for a future episode or just to say hi. If you let me know you left a review, I'll send you a Seasons Eating sticker for your trouble, as well as my unwavering gratitude. And if you're feeling extra generous this season, you can buy me an eggnog. Head on over to seasonseatingspodcast.com and click on the little cup in the corner. Each small donation helps with the daily running of the podcast and is greatly appreciated. Seasons Eatings also has some great gifts. Head on over, click on the merchandise tab on the side, and find your next great gift. All music for Seasons Eatings is used under the Creative Commons license.